Someone reached out to me since the last mock draft and said, "Hey, can you do the second pick in a 12-teamer full PPR?" I said, "No problem. If you enjoy, drop a like, subscribe to the channel. Let's get into it." We're over here on Sleeper, the best mock draft website out there. I think there's no doubt about that. Unless you want to go hop into some live mock drafts with some guys drafting Justin Tucker in the 6th or 7th round. I like the Sleeper because, for example, here, you see the number one pick, CeeDee Lamb. I think the consensus right now is Christian McCaffrey. But these guys like to throw in some curveballs sometimes here in their system, and it makes it feel more so like your hometown draft, especially in this case, if you're a Cowboys fan. So two flex spots, two receiver spots, two running back spots. Hopefully that is simple enough. But at number one, we're not going to be fancy like team number one. We're going to go out there and draft maybe, if I'm not mistaken, the number one fantasy player from last season in Christian McCaffrey. Of course, this is the guy that has the everything around him. He is the heartbeat of the San Francisco 49ers offense. And this is a team that's going to come back hungry this year to get back to where they were last year. And of course, this time get over the hump and win the Super Bowl here. But Christian McCaffrey here, and you see a lot of receivers in this first round. This is a year where the tide is turning. It's no longer a wide or a running back dominant first two rounds of your draft. It's going to be a wide receiver dominant first two rounds, right? And then running backs and quarterbacks come second. But Christian McCaffrey is too talented. He does everything, receiving, running, and of course, he's just the heartbeat of that offense. That's why we took him with the second overall selection. But we're back here at the 211, the end of the second round. And again, when you're on the turn, you got to reach for the guys that you like. So I'm in a position where I could go Sam Laporta, or I could wait in the third round and get a Travis Kelce. Those are my 1 and 2 tight ends on the year. That video drops, I believe, this past Monday. So if you're interested, go check that out. I could just grab the number one tight end on the board and say, hey, I got two number ones in my positional rankings. I could go Josh Jacobs, which is actually something that's interesting. And for the value's sake, I'm going to go Josh Jacobs because I believe in this Packers offense. I believe they can do something special this year. And why don't you look at that? Travis Kelce still goes ahead of Sam Laporta. And now, of course, sometimes your mock drafts probably won't go this well. But we ended up walking out of there with two top 10 running backs and our number one tight end on the board. That's just, it fell perfectly for us. Now, Cooper Kupp, I would have loved to fall for us here just 3 picks later because we would have definitely scooped him up here in the 4th round. But here's what I'm talking about with the tight end position. As Trey McBride, my tight end 3 on the season, he falls all the way here to the end of the 4th round. So we're in June. Things can change here from now until our draft season. So we're going to get these reps under our belt. Maybe it's worth just not taking a Sam Laporta and grabbing a guy like Michael Pittman, all right? And then coming around and grabbing a Trey McBride down the board. That is definitely something we have to keep in mind here ahead of the fantasy season. But Sam Laporta, tight end 1 on the season for me. I'm not going to complain too much. But now we're in an interesting spot. Again, 2 flex spots. Do we want to get crazy and draft Trey McBride? I know that's kind of a no-no, right? To draft 2 tight ends and start them on a week-to-week basis because it does limit your upside. But when you get 2 top 3 tight ends on the season, 2 guys that are in great situations that are kind of the heartbeats of their offense, maybe not Sam Laporta, but you guys understand what I'm getting at here. 2 guys that are going to get the ball and they're going to be dominant if they can stay healthy in Trey McBride and Sam Laporta, something to look at. But I'm going to take my chances that team 1 is not going to take Trey McBride here on the turn. And let's go out there and let's either get our quarterback in a guy like Anthony Richardson, which do we want to wait that he's not going to make it back? I want to go out there and I want to make sure we have a dominant wide receiver 1, which in this case, Amari Cooper looks to be my wide receiver 1 on the board. Yes, Amari Cooper is my wide receiver 1 on the board. It's going to be his last year of his last great year here in the NFL, and he's going to be the number 1 target and go-to option in this offense, especially if Nick Chubb is not 100% from day number 1 in this Browns offense. We just need Deshaun Watson to play halfway decent, and I think we're going to walk away saying this was a great pick here at the end of the 4th round. And then to start off the 5th round, now, again, I want to go crazy, and I want to go see how this looks if we go with a bully tight end strategy. Not a popular strategy, but when you have this much value on the board here, especially in the 3rd and 5th rounds, it's just how the board fell to me, and today we're here to experiment. So we went with 2 top 3 tight ends, 2 top 10 running backs, and a top 20 wide receiver to start off our draft. I think that's a pretty good start. And of course, at the end of the day, what at the midseason mark, if another team is struggling, and let's say Team 5, for example, if they're not doing great, we can go out there and trade one of these tight ends for a Cooper Kupp to revitalize this wide receiver room here on the second half of the season. Now, again, 3 wide receiver league or just a 1 flex option league, I probably don't go with Trey McBride. But we're back here in the 6th round. If you want to talk about PPR monsters, we have Christian Kirk and we have Evan Ingram. I'm not going to go crazy and draft 3 tight ends. I promise you, even though it is intriguing. It is intriguing to draft 3 tight ends, and that might even be the title of today's video. But Christian Kirk is here on the board. This is the guy that gives us a lot of steadiness. We know what we're getting with him as long as he's healthy. He's the slot receiver in this offense, and I understand they brought in Gabe Davis. I understand they brought in Brian Thomas Jr., but the chemistry there with Sunshine and Christian Kirk is something that's not going to go away. So, given the position that we're in, of course, Anthony Richardson just did go right before us here, and so did Joe Burrow, 2 guys that I would have loved to be my quarterback. What we're going to do is we're going to take our chances that a guy like Jordan Love gets back to us here on the turn, or Kyler Murray to get that stack between him and McBride. Something to look out for. We're going to go with Christian Kirk, okay? I take that back. We're going to go get our quarterback because Team 1 already has their wide receivers. Then they go to running backs. Perfect. So we played the board perfectly, and we're going to go walk out there with Christian Kirk here to be our wide receiver 2. So as this is coming around back to us, let's take a quick look at our team here. Of course, we went with 2 top 10 running backs, in my opinion, in McCaffrey and Josh Jacobs. We have 2 steady wide receivers in Amari Cooper and Christian Kirk. Not going to blow you off the page, but this is where we catch up with the stack between Kyler Murray and Trey McBride. And of course, Sam Laporta here as a 2 top 3 tight ends here in my starting lineup so far, but we definitely need some wide receiver help. When we continue down the board here, of course, Nick Chubb just went in the 8th round. And this is a guy that I'm interested to see where he goes in real life drafts because as of right now, all the reports say that Nick Chubb is ready to go and he's going to be the running back 1 yet again here in this Browns offense. So I'm interested to see how much he falls down the boards here because of his back-to-back knee injuries over the last couple of years of his career. But Nick Chubb, I'm a Browns fan. Look, if he's back, most running backs that suffer these knee injuries aren't built like Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb's going to be back. He's already squatting over 600 pounds again. He's going to be back, and he's going to be ready to go from day number 1 as long as Minkah Fitzpatrick doesn't hit him below the knee. The end of round 11 here. Of course, we're back on the clock, and we do need wide receiver help desperately. We see Deontay Johnson here. He's a guy that could have a very interesting season, or Ladd McConkey, 2 guys that should be the wide receiver 1s in their offense. I'm going to go with Ladd McConkey. He's getting all the wide receiver 1 reps there in Los Angeles at the moment. And of course, I want to bank on the upside of the talented rookie that, of course, is going to be a true separator for Justin Herbert, something he hasn't had consistently over the last couple of years because of the health concerns with Keenan Allen and the other wide receivers in this offense. But we're back here in the 9th round. Do we want to double down on rookie wide receivers and say, hey, let's go get Keon Coleman, the number 1 there in Buffalo? We could do that, and honestly, that is kind of intriguing. We could go Jaylen Warren, a guy that is going to be involved in this Arthur Smith split running back offense. Of course, Najee Harris is off the board, but we could get, hey, arguably the better running back in Jaylen Warren. We could just continue to stack tight ends and David Njoku, get 3 top 10 of them here on my team. JSN is another interesting option. Jonathan Brooks is set to be the running back 1 there in Carolina. But I want to wait on these Carolina options until later down the board. Now, again, if Jonathan Brooks is there in the 10th round, he's going to be the automatic selection, right? But we have 2 guys that we love at the running back position. If they can stay healthy, we are set at that position. So I'm going to go out there. I'm going to go just straight upside. Just straight upside. We have a lot of steadiness in our starting lineup. Let's go out there and draft 2 rookies back-to-back. Keon Coleman, Ladd McConkey, 2 number 1s in their offense. And Keon Coleman, I mean, both of these guys are in offenses that are primarily going to be run-centric offenses. But something to just look out for, right? Because both of these guys, if they're getting the number 1 reps, eventually you got to throw. And Justin Herbert, if he trusts Ladd McConkey the most, I like to get the number 1 wide receiver in that offense. And same could be said about Keon Coleman. If Josh Allen needs to throw, he's going to look towards Keon Coleman because if not, he's going to have to look at Khalil Shakir, right? And I like Keon Coleman in that battle. But we're back here on the clock. We could go upside here, right? Because we have Kyler Murray. And in these mock draft videos, because they're only 13, 14 rounds, I don't necessarily love to grab a backup quarterback. Now, if my real life draft was only 13 rounds, sure, I'd go out there and entertain an idea of a Jaden Daniels or a Trevor Lawrence here down the board. But I don't want to waste your guys' time with drafting backups. I want to use these last couple of rounds to draft the value here. Some guys to keep in the back of your mind here ahead of draft season. Chase Brown is the running back one there in Cincinnati. Something to look out for. Again, decent offensive line. And if they get in the red zone, they more times than not might hand it off. Blake Corum, of course, as of right now, because Kyron Williams is not at camp, is getting some good looks here. Something to just keep in mind at the moment. We'll go with Chase Brown, right? We'll go with Chase Brown, a guy that is the running back one solidified in his offense. The only other running back on the board that could say that is probably Ezekiel Elliott, and I think the bus has passed on drafting Ezekiel Elliott on your fantasy teams. But who knows? Last year he had a couple big weeks there for New England. But we're back on the clock here in round 11. We could go Tyler Lockett, very steady wide receiver. If anything happens to a guy like Amari Cooper or Christian Kirk or Ladd McConkey or Keon Coleman doesn't turn out, we have a guy like Tyler Lockett that's going to consistently give us 10 to 15 points on a week-to-week basis. And every single year, he finds a way to be a top 25 wide receiver. So given the fact that our wide receiver room's a little bit shaky, let's grab a veteran in Tyler Lockett. Luke Musgrave and Mike Williams go directly after. Mike Williams is an interesting option, but again, if we were playing our fantasy seasons from week 1 to 8, Mike Williams would probably be a top 5 pick. Or I'll say this, a first couple round pick, all right? But we don't play till midseason. We play to week 18, right? Mike Williams, if I can talk, is just a guy that can never stay healthy. But interesting, team 4 goes with that stack of Mike Williams and Aaron Rodgers. We're back up here on the clock, and we could continue to hammer the wide receiver position. We're having a guy like Jerry Jeudy, a guy that's in this Browns offense, is ready to break out. He's ready to be worth that first-round selection. And if he has a quarterback like Deshaun Watson getting him the ball, he's in a good position to do that. But how much are we going to trust Deshaun Watson? I don't want to continue to grab Browns wide receivers, especially if we're going to have to rely on Jameis Winston to get them the ball, right? But Jahan Dotson stands out there on the board. Of course, down the board a little bit, Josh Palmer is the proven wide receiver in this offense. Of course, Ty Chandler's a guy that's interesting to look at because if anything happens to Aaron Jones, this is the instant wide or running back one in this offense. And for that reason, I do like Ty Chandler down the board. He's one of my favorite sleepers. And in a couple weeks, we'll dive into him just a little bit more. The last pick here, of course, we could go Jahan Dotson. We could go Josh Palmer, Brandon Cooks, Ricky Pearsall. Go Gators. And there's a couple different options here down the board. Kendre Miller, anything happens to Alvin Kamara. Kendre Miller is an intriguing handcuff option. Marshawn Lloyd is turning heads at Green Bay camp. Anything happens to Josh Jacobs, Marshawn Lloyd is a good sleeper pick. I don't know much about Tyrone Tracy. I'd have to actually do some due diligence there, right? I'll have to look into that one there. Tyler Algier, of course, is a proven running back, but it's a different scheme now in Atlanta. They're not going to split that backfield as much as they have in the past, or at least that's what's being reported. Down the board here, I see Roman Wilson, and he will round out my wide receiver room because of the fact that this is a guy that he's in an offense with Russell Wilson and or Justin Fields, the best quarterback he's had so far in his career, whether at the collegiate level or on. So he's going to have the best overall quarterback on his team so far. I'll give you guys a moment to look at our team here. And he's going to be the number 2 wide receiver in this offense next to George Pickens, who's going to draw a lot of attention. Pat Freiermuth is back. Freiermuth is going to gather a lot of attention on the field. That's going to leave Roman Wilson in a lot of playmaking situations, a lot of one-on-one scenarios. And with his separation ability, maybe he's the wide receiver that breaks out in this offense to make this offense a lot better than it is on paper, especially in the passing game. Now, we do have to worry about Arthur Smith being a thorn in our sides on a week-to-week basis, right? Because we saw how he couldn't utilize his wide receiver 1 in Drake London last year, let alone 2 relevant fantasy wide receivers. But who knows, right? Who knows? Maybe if anything happens to George Pickens, all I'm saying is the potential is there for Russell Wilson and or Justin Fields to like Roman Wilson down the field. Again, big body wide receiver that creates separation. You take your chances in that moment. To close off here, I just want to review our lineup and take a quick look at our draft boards. Of course, at the quarterback position, we only took one in Kyler Murray. We like that value down the board. He's a top 10 quarterback, top 11 quarterback in my eyes. At the running back position, we got lucky here. At the number 2 overall pick, we did get my number 1 overall pick on the board in Christian McCaffrey. We came back with Josh Jacobs, 2 top 10 running backs, and then we waited a little bit. We had a big stretch where we waited, and we ended up coming back and grabbing some value options down the board. A guy like Ty Chandler, a guy like Chase Brown, right, to round out our boards. 2 guys that could easily be the running back ones on their team. So legitimately 4 running back ones here on our team, 2 that are stability and 2 of them that have a lot of upside. At the wide receiver position, it's definitely the shakiest part of our team here, right? Amari Cooper, top 20 wide receiver. We know what he's getting, but he doesn't have the elite upside of a guy like, let's say, Puka Nacua, right? After that, we have Christian Kirk, 2 PPR monsters here. And then we went out there and drafted some young rookies, guys like Ladd McConkey and Keon Coleman, 2 guys that could be, well, they are the legitimate wide receiver ones in their offense, but they could be dominant this year given their role. And outside of that, we drafted Tyler Lockett for some stability, right? We know what we're getting in Tyler Lockett. Now, what makes this draft different from every other draft you'll probably see this offseason outside of designated bully tight end strategies is the fact that we went tight end centric. You see here in the 3rd round, Sam Laporta fell to us, right? He's usually a 2nd round pick here early in the offseason. And instead, team 1 goes with Travis Kelce over a guy like Sam Laporta. Not a bad selection. They're 1 and 2 in my rankings. But we get my tight end 1 in the 3rd round, along with 2 top 10 running backs. So I love that value there. And then here in the 5th round, I was coincidentally talking to you guys about how Trey McBride would be an intriguing 4th round option. But team 1, I knew that they weren't going to double down on tight ends. So I kind of, looked at the system and said, okay, they already have a tight end. They already drafted 1 high. They're not going to get another one. I drafted Amari Cooper, and that's where we got our wide receiver 1, which was good because they ended up drafting 2 receivers off the board, and we went Trey McBride in the 5th round. Now, I expect his value to probably be a set in stone 4th round pick this season, but who knows? Not a lot of people like Kyler Murray. Not a lot of people are sold on this offense. He could be a guy that falls down the board, but of course, we got that stack with Kyler Murray. Makes it that much more dangerous here for our team. But that's a quick look at our board here. Did not mean to select on Fergie, but if you enjoyed, drop a like, subscribe to the channel. Every single week, we drop 2 fantasy football videos every single Monday and Wednesday at 1 o'clock Eastern. And again, whether if it's rankings, whether if it's we're discussing rumors, right? Whether if we're saying this is the best value in this round, we do everything here on the channel, right? And when we get into the season, we do start-sit options on a week-to-week basis, as well as fantasy waiver options on a week-to-week basis. Again, for absolutely free. We're all fantasy football addicts, especially if you're watching this video. And of course, if you have any questions or comments, concerns, drop them in the comments. I get back to you guys as quickly as I possibly can. But that's enough yapping here. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. I'll see you guys tomorrow.